Welcome to the Recess Life Podcast. This is the place where we explore play and what it means to get back to your inner child. I'm Louise, your host. Join me as I chat with teachers, entrepreneurs, artists, and thought leaders about how we can live a life of more play and impact. Let's get it started. Happy New Year, everyone! Happy 2020! Sounds a little crazy to say that because it just doesn't even sound like a real year, but here we are nonetheless. I hope that this finds you well and rested from the holiday season. These last couple weeks have been so nice because things have just been quieter. The world slows down a little bit. I know I've taken advantage of that. I've worked a little bit here and there, but have really taken the time to spend it with friends, to ground down into what I want the next year to look like. 2019 was great because I did a lot of things that I intended on doing, like launching this podcast, like achieving certain goals with work. I had a goal to start a movement culture practice, which I will talk about probably here and there a little bit more on these podcasts, but it's essentially this movement practice that I've been so enamored and admired for years and years, and I finally started training in it with a group here in San Francisco. It's been great, and I wanted to travel a bit more and did a lot of that this last year. So this past couple weeks, I've just taken the time to just really think about what I want the next year to look like, work on my intentions for the new year, spend it with loved ones, and I hope you got to take this time for yourself as well. I'm super excited to be bringing you the first episode of the new year. We're still on season 2. The guest today is Antoine Joyce. He is the city leader of the Dallas chapter of the AllStars Project. The AllStars Project is a nonprofit organization that is all over the country, and they use the power of performance and play to work with underserved and poor youth. I first learned about the AllStars Project in the documentary Play. It was produced and narrated by Stuart Brown, who wrote the book Play, who is a big pioneer and thought leader around the play movement. And in the documentary, they talked about how play really benefits us as a society, how it's being used in different ways, and they specifically talked about the AllStars Project. And I actually looked them up right away afterwards and found that they have a San Francisco chapter here, and I have since done some volunteering with them. The most recent volunteer opportunity I did with them, a bunch of us volunteers worked with the youth using improv workshops, play-based activities to help the students prepare for a luncheon that they were going to have. A luncheon where they would be networking and talking to business people and helping them build those skills for future opportunities. And it was really fun to be able to use play and improv to help prepare them, because I think it's super easy and very normal to use more maybe traditional methods to prepare youth for these opportunities, like resume reviews and other ways that maybe in my mind are not super engaging. But play and improv really helps people to connect with each other better. And that is what the AllStars Project is helping these youth to do. So I am so thrilled to be bringing you this conversation with Antoine. Antoine himself went through the AllStars Project when he was a young person growing up poor in Brooklyn. And the AllStars Project enabled him to build the tools to have a music career where he was producing and traveling on the road with some really well-known artists. And now he's working with the next generation of youth to help them build the tools that he learned in the organization. We talked about how play and performance can be so instrumental in developing youth, particularly those that are in poor communities. And we talked about why it's important that adults can use performance as a tool to help us move through our lives as well. And we talked about how performance can be used as a tool for us as adults to move through life and to help us move through these boxes that we place ourselves in sometimes. Stay tuned for the end of the episode where I'll recap some of the little nuggets of wisdom that we talked about in the conversation, and I will catch you at the end. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of The Recess Life. I have today with me Antoine Joyce. He is the city leader of the AllStars Project, a nonprofit organization that is doing amazing things for youth and young people. And I do a little bit of volunteer work with the AllStars Project here in San Francisco. And I am just so jazzed to be speaking to Antoine today. How are you doing today, Antoine?
I'm good. I just got hungry. So after this, Uber Eats is definitely on the menu.
There we go.
But, yeah.
You have that to look forward to. That can be your reward at the end of this conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, you are the city leader of the AllStars Project in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
Can you share an overview about what the AllStars Project does?
Yeah, definitely. So we have talking points for this. So now I'm like searching for the talking points.
Perfect.
So the All Stars Project, I like to start with our mission, is to transform the lives of youth in poor communities using the developmental power of performance and partnership with caring adults. And so let me break that down, right? So developmental power of performance. That means young people are literally on stage performing, right? They perform in different high schools. They perform in talent shows with our All-Stars Talent Show Network. They're singing, dancing, rapping, something I used to do when I was younger, around 12, 13 years old. And then there are all those virtual stages that we know. There's what's the stage when you're in school? What's the stage when you're at church? I use those analogies a lot because I'm in Texas. What is the stage in business, right? So those all require different performances. And the funny thing is, sometimes young people don't even know that you need a performance in school or you need a performance at church. So we're helping young people access the fact that they are performers. One thing that we have over all animals is that we do have the power to perform in our environment and to create our environment. So that's what we mean by developmental power of performance. And then when you invite caring adults to the party, adults who want to be involved in young people's lives to help them have developmental experiences. And we define development as seeing opportunity, then having tools to act on opportunities. When you bring partners together to help young people develop, it changes the world. So that's what we do. And again, we do that through our All-Stars Talent Show Network, where young people perform and produce in hip-hop talent shows in their neighborhoods, and through a program called Development School for Youth, where young people are learning how to perform in professional environments, where adults are leading workshops and providing paid summer internships. So that's what we do.
Yeah.
Short.
It's giving them the tools to really perform in different settings that they will use throughout their life.
Correct. Right. I was just talking to one of my staff members today, because, and this is, I have nothing against education, right? I got an education. You did, we need an education. And some people always saying, well, great. Is your programs helping young people go to college? And I say no. And they go, whoa, why not? I say our programs are helping young people decide what opportunities are available for them, college being one of them. But we work with, so again, go back to the mission, we work with young people and poor communities. So when you're working with young people who live in poor communities, sometimes the option is not just as simple, I'm going to go to college. The barrier to get there is so far in between. So I take again a personal stance on my life. I grew up poor. I grew up in a single family home, four boys in a house. And when I got accepted to college, I got accepted to some out of state, some in state. My mom was like, you're not going out of state. And one, I never realized it. She couldn't afford to send me out of state. Who's going to pay for my room and board and all the books and the transportation getting me back and forth? She's like, nope, you're going to go to John Jay College. It's right here. And I want to make sure that, I had a place to live, had a place to eat. So all those things were things I never thought about when I was going to college. So for many of our young people, college is not a automatic option. They got to work. They have families to support. Um, they want a trade school. I've learned I'm a creative. I didn't really do well in college because I'm not a big reader and tester and math person. But you give me arts, oh man, I'm all over the place. And so that's where I laid my hat at.
Yeah. And it's giving young people different experiences and exposure to different environments because, like you said, math, science may not be for one young person, but the arts might be. And they may not know that that's who they are unless they're exposed to that.
Right. And let me double down on this though. It could be that it's for them, but you have to learn how to play with it since it's all about play. So it took me a long time to actually be open to the fact that I still count on my hands. When I'm doing math, I have people who they do things in their head. I'm like, I always felt stupid because I wasn't like them. I couldn't do it in my head. It took me longer to do a math test than everybody else. And I'm sitting there under the table going, you know. And then one day I just got the permission to play and to be like, I count on my hands. And sometimes I think I use my toes too. And people laugh. And I'm like, so, okay, here we go. All right, cool. And I make it into a beat like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6. Okay, cool. And that's what actually helped me to learn how to dance was that music has beats. You got to be able to count the beats.
Right?
There's math to music. My cousin was a DJ. He taught me how to DJ. And when you're working with BPMs and that math on the fly, yeah, I'm like, okay, this song has 140 BPMs. I'm about to bring in a Beyonce song that's a 70 BPM. Okay, cut it in half. Cool, great, good. They match. I got it. Okay, I got to move this. So when I'm playing and I'm doing math, oh, I'm great.
Exactly. Yes. And it's learning that there are many different ways to learn and that everyone learns differently. I used to think I was horrible at memorization, but then I could memorize a song, no problem. Right.
Correct.
So it seems like All Stars really gives young people the opportunity to figure out how they learn best in some ways, right?
Yeah, well, how they learn, how they, again, giving them tools to perform. And when you give young people an opportunity to perform, they can create, we sometimes say they can be who they are and who they are not at the same time, right? Gives them permission. So I use this term a lot. I get a lot of young people who say, I came to your programs because I'm shy. I go, great. Now, I don't argue with them about their version of shy. Shy is a label. I think we put labels on people and then you start performing to the label, right?
Mm.
So I say, great, you are shy. Perform someone who's not.
Ooh.
Try it, right? And so you sometimes the joke sometimes becomes the young people start performing me. And they're like, well, okay, then I'll perform like this. I'm like, is that me? They're like, yeah, that's you. But I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
But in that performance, I've seen them talk louder, stand up straighter. They was doing different things. So they're picking up on my crazy mannerisms, but they're not talking like this. So then I'll go, great. How did that feel? It's like, I was just playing around. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah.
So continue playing.
Gives them the opportunity to try on a different label and to not make it so serious, right? It's like, oh, we're just playing. So why don't you try this label instead? I love that. Can you talk a little bit about how a young person would enter into an AllStars program, how they would come into the organization?
Yeah, that's great. So another talking point. We use our talking points in the All Stars. Good old fashioned community organizing. so so literally, we were born out of activism. Our founders were born out of the 60s and community organizing. So to this day, it's a core tenet. So we have teams, volunteers that go out into poor communities and the housing developments. We knock on doors and we go, somebody open the door, like, "Hi, my name is Antoine. Want to be in a talent show?" And they're like, you know, we stand on street corners in different metropolitan areas in New York and New Jersey and San Francisco, and we stop passersby and say, "Hi, we're the All Stars. Can we tell you about our after-school development programs?" We go into the schools and we stand in front of auditoriums or we, in classrooms. And then the young people, after a while, start going, "Hey, Mr. Antoine, my cousin is graduating soon. Can they be in the program?" I'm like, "Sure." So that's how we reach out young people. And they don't have to, for a talent show, they come to an audition. For a development school for youth, they will come to an interview. In New York, we have a youth theater program called Youth on Stage. So they come to an audition there as well. The secret is everyone makes it, right?
Awesome.
So
Hmm.
I know I gave away the big secret, but if you're watching this, everyone makes it. The funny thing is, it never takes away the anxiety because the performance of an interview is still there. Okay, I'm nervous.
Of course.
Will I be the one they tell no? I'm like, every year, no. So it doesn't matter how your grades, how well you're doing at home, what's going on in your family, your religion, your race, your sexuality. If you want to be a part of the All Stars, you are welcome to be part of the All Stars.
Amazing.
Right.
Grassroots outreach, it sounds like.
That's it.
Yep.
100%.
So a young person could be a part of a talent show. And does that happen several times a year in each chapter or once a year?
Yeah, each chapter is different. So,
Okay.
I'm playing and innovating in some ways here in Dallas. We have about, if I remember, 2 to 3 talent shows in New York and New Jersey chapter. I currently started doing a teen rap battle in Dallas last year. Actually, this year. I'm like the year's almost over, but it's this year. We do a big talent show with a prize of $500, and we do small community events around different neighborhoods. So I'm always looking to get more young people involved in many different ways. So we partner with different organizations, and sometimes we'll make here's the great thing about talent show. There's a myth to a talent show that it has to be big and huge. It has to be hundreds of people. Don't get me wrong. I love those talent shows. They helped me develop when I was doing them. And I see something really powerful this year. An organization called me up and said, "We would like you to work with our teens over the summer." They have 15 kids in this program. And I'll be honest, I went there going, 15 kids, like, what am I doing? So we started doing improv activities. So we always use that tentative because you got to warm up to things, right? And they started playing with each other, having so much fun. It was a little rambunctious at times. And then I say, "Great, let's put on a show." They go, "Cool." It's like, what do we need to create a talent show? We need performers. I said, "Great. Who's going to be a dancer? Who's going to be a rapper?" 2 kids raised their hands. "I'm going to perform." I was like, "What else do we need?" "We need music." I said, "Great. I got a sound system in the car." So I brought a sound system out. Somebody said, "We need decorations." I was like, "Good. I got my All Stars pull up banner." I was like, "So you're the production team. You put up the banner. I'm going to teach you how to put the sound up." So all the kids got involved and they want to plug in the microphone and things like that. They put the banner up. I said, "What else do we need?" Somebody says, "We need a stage." I said, "Oh my God, we need a stage," right? So again, there was no literal high school stage. So I gave them a piece of tape, and the young people, and these kids are like 9 to 15 years old. They taped out a stage and put the speakers on the stage. I didn't tell them where or how. And then I was like, okay, are we done? Somebody's like, you need an audience. I said, oh my gosh, who's going to be the audience? And in 5 minutes, we created a show. All the young people got on stage and performed something. It, they just made it up.
Yep.
Somebody was being the DJ, playing the music. I had two young people perform as the MCs to introduce them. So I'm like, say this line. I go, okay. And then they'll say the line and the person comes on stage. So again, this myth of, I just told you the line. You just watched me tell you the line, and the kids waited for the line to be told by the MC, and then they came on stage and performed, and the audience applauded. And after 30 minutes, I was like, okay, I gotta go. They're like, no, we want to play some more. I'm like,
We don't want it to end.
no.
I think as a whole, we can so easily get caught up in the details and making things too complicated with anything in our life, right? And you don't need much to be creative, and you just need people that are willing to collaborate together and creative thinking, and you can make a lot of things happen. I love your story because I've thrown a couple events of my own where I invited a bunch of friends and friends of friends. I found an art studio to do the event, and I asked people if you're a singer or if you are a casual hobbyist musician, if you play guitar, if you play violin, you play ukulele, come to this space at 7 o'clock on Wednesday. And everyone
Nice.
came. I gave everyone an hour and a half to mingle and mix with each other. And then after the end of the hour, I said, okay, this singer, you will go with that guitar player. Ukulele player, you go with this violin player. This singer goes with two guitar players. And I gave everyone another hour to workshop songs together with the person that I assigned them to. And then at the end of it, everyone took turns performing, and I was the MC. I would introduce everybody, and everyone would perform for each other. And then I also invited other people that weren't any of the musicians to come and watch as the audience. And it was so easy and simple and fun. And yeah, it was one of my favorite memories from the past couple years.
I bet that sounds awesome.
It was
One,
really fun.
you know, I mean, and that's what play does too. It helps create new kinds of collaborations. It's like, sometimes, again, break the rules of who needs to work with who and who needs to play with who. We're all playing together. We're creating something. And, in that, they were teaching me something because I literally was looking at the counselor who asked me to come and do this work. And I was like, I don't know if this is having any impact on these young people or not. I really couldn't tell in that moment. And this woman only talked with me on the phone 3 times before I came to do the event. And she said, huh, that's interesting that you don't see what I'm seeing. I was like, what are you seeing? She's like, I'm seeing young people collaborate with each other. I'm seeing young people having fun, being playful. I'm seeing young people pushing themselves and challenging themselves, learning some new things. Like she named all these things that is what is the goal, but I couldn't see it because even for me, it was not a traditional show.
Yeah.
It was not a traditional thing that I create. And so it took a stranger to tell me, like, yeah, this is really powerful. And
Mm.
the next time we came, the young people were like, hey, Antoine. I'm like, whoa. I met them once for an hour workshop and they remembered my name
Yep.
a whole month later.
Hmm.
So,
You made an impact.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Why do you think play and performance is so effective at impacting, I mean, people in general, but maybe in particular to these youth in these poor communities that the All Stars Project serves?
Well, so there's what, I mean, let me answer it 2 ways. One, we built the All Stars based on research, right? So to go a little history, our founders, Dr. Fred Newman and Dr. Lenora Fulani. Dr. Fred Newman was a Stanford trained philosopher, and Dr. Fulani is a developmental psychologist. And uh, Dr. Newman, he got politicized and wanted to and he just wanted to do something. So he was a creative man who was like, we should just go do something, right? Dovetail that with Dr. Filani, she was at Rockefeller University studying how children play. And her and some other colleagues came across Lev Vygotsky, and this whole research group was studying Vygotsky. And Vygotsky studied how children play. And what he learned or studied was that children in a family have what they call a zone of proximal development. They take on the characteristics of the family unit. They play with each other, and we play back. So he talked about how babies learn to talk, is they babble and we talk back to the baby. So the baby's not making any audible noise, but we're saying, I understand you. Oh, and you have a conversation. Eventually, the baby becomes a talker.
Hmm.
The baby is stumbling and they're doing this, and we're relating to them as they are a walker. And then the baby becomes a walker. And some of that performing with them is we're playing with like, oh, come, you can do it, yes. And we're affirming and we're congratulating, and it's giving the baby confidence that what I'm doing is something that I should be doing, is correct. And so Dr. Filani and Fred Newman took those premises with also some philosophy and social and therapy, and created the All Stars. So why it's important is because we are natural performers. We are born to imitate and born to see things and pretend to be it. I don't study this stuff, but I remember watching old videos and watching how people hunt, saying that we create things to look like an animal and we'll do things to be like an animal to hunt. So we were performing even how we were gathering food back in the day.
Whoa.
Think about it, right? So, and then somebody said, good job, you got the food. Or good job, you said a word. Good job, you're talking. So that affirmation then heightens the level of, oh, this is a great thing to do. So what we do in the All Stars is we're always constantly performing and then affirming. So again, at a talent show, the talent doesn't matter. Everyone makes it, everyone's congratulated, invited to be in the show. And then the audience has the same performances, no matter who you came to see or support, whether it's your kid or not, applaud. Whatever happens on stage, you applaud. We do not censor. We're inviting young people to have a stage where they can be open to try different performances on a stage. Some of them may get more applause than the other, depending on what the performance is. But it's a way of learning that, oh, when I said that word, they didn't applaud very well. But when I did this, they applauded. Huh. So it's also a way to try things without much consequence.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I want to try a boisterous performance, and I used to be a kid I grew up in the hood, and I will see people on the street. I'm like, I want to be a gangster. I want to do this. I want to, we talk like this in Brooklyn. What up, son? So if I go out there, what up, son, on the street, somebody might punch me in my face.
Potentially.
Well, potentially, So maybe my performance wasn't convincing enough, so he wasn't scared of me. But young people could do that on stage and perform being a gangster and be applauded. They'd be like, oh, that's interesting what that feels like. I don't have to try it out there. Maybe I like performing it on this stage. Yeah. Maybe tomorrow I want to perform being a doctor. Will they applaud for that too?
Right.
And same thing in the corporate environment. For the shy kid I was talking about, I purposely like to pick on the shy kids. Ask a question and go, I don't know what to ask. So I say cut, because we're doing a play, saying. So I told my coordinator, she's like, the content doesn't matter. What they're learning in that corporate environment, it's great stuff to know, but it ultimately doesn't matter, because what we're doing is I'm saying cut. Let's cut the performance. Great. You just talked about, you put on a show, you had guitarists and drummers and things like that. What question could you ask her? And the young person's looking at us like, how many people does she have? Oh, that's a good question. Okay, great. You ask it. Say action. How many drummers and guitar people did you have? And you go, well, that's a good question. And you answer the question. They go, oh, it
Yeah.
wasn't hard. It's the same thing as putting on that show as the MC. I'm just giving you the lines and you're performing, asking it, and eventually you get affirmed. And what happens? You become a question asker.
Hmm.
There's
Oh,
some young people, I can't shut up anymore. They keep asking me questions. I'm like, I gotta work.
right. You did too good of a job, Antoine.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I love using that lens of performance to say if you can perform in one way, you're capable of performing in multitude of other ways as well. And just getting getting these young people to be able to see themselves outside of the box maybe that they've put themselves in and using performance as a tool for that. Why do you think I think as we grow up, we sort of put ourselves more and more in a box, adults specifically. And why do you think that is? Do you think you say we're all natural born performers? I see as we grow up and become more mature and more adult like, we tend to perform less. Whether that's
Yeah.
on stage or whether we just put ourselves in this box and think, okay, I only perform this way and that's it. Why do you think that is?
Oh God. A lot of thoughts there. I mean,
Yeah.
some of it is, what happens in education, right? So in pre-K, you get to play, or at least when I was growing up, in pre-K and kindergarten, you got to play more. I remember playing with blocks and arts and craft and, story time and recess. And then in first grade, I got to grow up. In first grade, I got to stop performing because I got to start behaving, right? It now becomes a negative thing because now you need me to learn some cognitive things. And my performing, the play, the thing that for the first 2 years of an education environment that you would encourage me to do and that everyone at home gave me encouragement to do is now this bad thing because we did not learn how to incorporate play into our learning. And then we create it's just so I don't think it's us putting us in boxes. We start adapting to society that says, here's how you should be. Here's what corporate America should be. Here's what school should look like. Here's what, going to the store should look like. And again, you have that ZPD, that zone of practical development. You start going, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. Because so when the kids say they're shy, to me, what I'm hearing them saying is, I seen somebody else who don't talk and who don't like being in public, and they call themselves shy or introvert. So that must be me, right? You know. So I think so. That's how the boxes get constructed. We start seeing labels that someone else created, and we take them on for ourselves because it's like, oh, well, he's doing the same performance I'm doing. You know. Um,
Yep.
yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and it gets limiting.
It does. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit that we have the ability to perform outside the labels that we place on ourselves. And I think play is such an effective tool for exploring those labels beyond ourselves. And that's what you're doing with All Stars Project. So
Yeah.
it's so amazing. Um,
Thank you.
let's go back to your backstory a little bit. You mentioned a
Yeah.
little bit earlier, you grew up in New York, poor. Tell us what it was like growing up and how you found All Stars as a youth.
I can say this in hindsight. Growing up poor sucks. um, and as a sidebar, it's very sad to see young people still growing up in poverty. I'm very close to it. So sometimes when you're knocking on those doors in these communities, and my mind just goes, "Wow, this is still the way people live," right? Like I'm 42 years, I'll be 42 soon. Um, I mean, it's hard to like 30 years later think about that people still live the way I used to live with not a lot. And anyway, so
Mm.
that was hard. Again, single parent home, four boys. Um, and I was related to as a smart kid. So I've always felt good academically. I was in the top class in the school. So not knowing the world, and that's the thing about poverty, you don't know the world. So I didn't know how the education system worked. I knew my school. I lived across the street from my school. So everything that I uh, had in my life was like in a 15 block radius. School, the corner store, supermarket was 3 blocks away, church was 7 blocks away. My cousins lived maybe 9 blocks away. Like there was nothing that I didn't need is 15 blocks, square blocks. Um, and everybody in those 15 square blocks lived like me. So I didn't know there was something else other than poor because nobody in my family knew anybody else who didn't live in these 15 square blocks.
Yeah.
So, so my first experience of something different was after I graduated elementary school and didn't make it into a smart program, but everybody told me I was smart. But then I got into another program that I skipped 8th grade. So I'm now 12 years old instead of 14, going into high school. And I went to a high school that was majority white. And the kids didn't, not only did not look like me, they were doing things I've never seen before in my school where I was a smart guy in the all black school. So at gym, we didn't have basketball at the school. We have volleyball. There was kids wearing uniforms that were in football. They had a stick in their hand, they had a net, and they threw a little small ball across the classroom. And I was like, "What is this? This is
Lacrosse?
19. Yes,
Okay.
right, right.
Yeah.
This is 1992, 90. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the hell's lacrosse, right? Soccer wasn't even as big as it was then. I'm like insane. So it was, at least in the states. So I'm in an environment. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I have no clue. And the kids would talk about things. They would talk about being places that I never heard before. So you can tell by the way I'm animated, I'm an extrovert. In my 10th year of high school, I was shy. I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't speak up in class. My mother would come to open school night and she's like, "Why is my child failing? He was a 90 percentile student all up into ninth grade. How is he failing 10th grade?" And they like, "We don't know. He doesn't speak. He comes in class. He doesn't say anything. He wears his shades." One teacher said, "Maybe he's on drugs."
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, the Spanish teacher said, "Well, maybe you should help him at home with his homework." She goes, "Well, I'm at home when he does his homework because I'm at work." "Oh, you work? Oh,
Wow. What a concept to
exactly.
her. Mm.
Right." So that was growing up for me. And again, there was this pivotal point, and I don't know why my cousin started dancing. I tried to get it out of my aunt, but one day they just started dancing. They lived in the projects. They formed a dance group with their friends down the hall. They went to a place and made a video of them dancing. People thought they was good and invited them to do some talent shows. So I, as a little cousin, would come and watch them do talent shows. And at the time, I was going through this thing of, again, that posture I was talking about before. I literally was trying to be a gangster. So I called myself the intelligent hoodlum.
I like
And
it.
yeah, but I went to a store. I bought me some knives. I would carry around knives. I would sharpen knives. I would walk around the hood trying to be big and bad and wanted somebody to test me because I have a knife on me. Luckily, no one ever wanted to bother me in that way. I never got to use it. So I'm lucky. in that sense, right?
Hmm.
Um, and over a summer, going to talent shows, I started picking up the dances. To one point, I was like, I actually could do, I can do this dance. My older cousin was the DJ, so he made all the music, so I had access to the music. So one day for fun, playing around, I was doing their dance, showing off like, man, this is what y'all doing. What? They was like, he actually is doing the dance. So, right. And then, so they invited me to join the group. So, and I was only playing. I was like teasing them, like, this is your dance moves, whatever. Whatever. You know what I'm saying? And he was like, he actually
Whoa.
can do it. So, right.
And this was an All
Think
Stars talent show that they were performing in?
one All Stars and some other ones as well.
Got it.
Yeah. So that just took me on a different trajectory. So then, kind of speed up some, going to the talent, now going to the All Star shows. I'm watching kids perform. I'm seeing the same kids. And one day this guy goes, I'm standing around, I'm probably in the way of the tech team, and he says, hey, pick up that speaker. You're always here. So pick up the speaker, take it to the car. And the first time I saw a production in the new way was when they took down everything off the stage and put it into a car. And I was like, all this energy fits into a little minivan? So it intrigued me on what production was. Later on, somebody said, you can be a producer of these shows. You can be the MC. So I started learning how to be a producer, started being an MC. And what that eventually taught me how to do was when my older cousin started DJing in clubs, he worked for a radio station and he would come with his equipment. And one day I'm looking at him going, it's like a talent show sound system. I can put this together. And I watched him 2 times. I was like, I got this. Click, 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 click. Here's your needles. Here's whatever. Here's your records. And he started going, you're very helpful at this. So I started traveling with him around the city, DJing, and I was his crate guy, his setup guy, and everything. That
Yeah.
turned into a 5 year career of us working in clubs. And
Wow.
then I worked for the radio station. So I learned how to MC at the radio station. I did some broadcasts with him. Eventually, he went on tour with Grandmaster Flash, a legendary hip hop DJ. And I'm talking to Flash. I'm like, yo, your show needs this. It needs lights. It needs this. You need some gobos on stage. You should have a banner with your name on it. So he hired me and he took me on tour. And I traveled the world over 50 countries, you know, setting up his stage show.
How
You know what I'm saying?
amazing.
Setting up his DJ equipment, working with media and marketing and stuff like that, you
Mm.
know.
I love all this because you went from the shy, introverted kid you were when you entered into this high school that felt very unfamiliar and you didn't feel quite at home there. And because you were exposed to the All Stars project and you were exposed to production and dance and performance, you were just playing around and you were able to take on a different identity, a different label that you had placed on yourself when you were in school. And it led you down this path and that took you around the world and doing production for Grandmaster Flash because you were exposed to performance and play.
Yeah. And again, back to our mission, caring adults. So I don't want to leave out that the core thing that the All Stars did for me, one was when I started producing the shows, the office was in Manhattan. So I had to leave Brooklyn to go to Manhattan, which prior to then, I had no other reason to go to Manhattan. Had no reason to leave Brooklyn. So now I had a reason to be in different areas. I had a reason to work around white people.
Mm.
I had a reason to work around gay people. I had, saying, so I started to learn from these people. And then we got bigger and our donors started inviting us into their homes and their businesses. So I start to see the inside of buildings with 60 floors and homes on the Upper East Side and Upper West Side and, penthouses on the 60th floor and so forth. And again, my poverty coming up against that, you know, but people not being judgy of me, allowing me to perform in different environments, to fail, and to keep trying different things. That's the key to performance. Is in performance, you can try some things out and fail at them. So our programs are allowing young people to fail every single day without the consequence,
Yep.
right? Before you have to go into an environment of getting a job and you're like, what did I do wrong? And you get fired from a job.
Hmm.
So hopefully we can help young people realize, oh, you know, good attitude, good smile, shake, hey, shake. What do you need? Let's
Yeah.
keep jobs. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. It's giving them just the safety to fail in a lower stakes environment so that they can practice and build those skills and build that tool set so that they can be successful out in the real world.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're a star success story from the All Stars project. When did you start the Dallas chapter, and how did that come about from doing your music production career?
I left the tour, and this is like, sometimes I feel like it's a dream, but it's totally not. I will come back from tour. I will be in Australia. Just did a massive show with 10,000 people. I'll fly first class back home, thinking I made it, and I'll come back to Brooklyn. And I lived in a nicer neighborhood in Brooklyn by that time. But I'll go back to the old neighborhood and still see people I grew up with, still living the way they lived when I was younger. I will see other kids still struggling. And then I would go places and like randomly twice on the train, like randomly somewhere and somewhere in Manhattan, because I no longer hang out in Brooklyn, even though I love Brooklyn. I would just be in Manhattan. Kids came up to me, was like, "You're that talent show guy. You used to MC the talent show." And I'm like, "Yeah." They go, "Here's what I'm doing with my life." So like everything from one kid was a record label executive, and the other kid, another friend of mine, he went to college, did a talent show at college, and got picked up by Will Smith and was his ghostwriter on 3 of his albums.
What?
Yeah, yeah,
After having done
and
the
it's
All
fun. Yeah,
Stars project, that's what happened.
yep, yep. And those are big stories, and they'll still happen here in Dallas. And then there's even little stories like there's a young man that when I was producing talent shows in New York, I, I have to disqualify you. So we do have rules, right? So again, we don't censor on stage, but you have to come on time. You still have to be respectful in the environment. So his team came late, and I had to disqualify them. And it happened like 3 times over like course of a couple of years. So one day he sees me, he goes, "I'm the manager of KFC." I was like, "They made you the manager of a whole store?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "How did you do that?" He's like, "Antoine, you disqualified me so many times. I learned how to be on time for work."
Ah.
So, so, so they kept promoting him.
I love those biscuits from KFC.
Right, exactly. I laugh so hard, but those are like little things that became so big. So those experiences kind of instilled in me that as much as I love traveling and doing those shows, to this day, no one still came to me and said, "Hey, that show changed my life." So I, I want to be somebody who's in people's lives and help them change their lives. So I came knocking back and it's like, "Hey, is there a job for me?" And they made me a fundraiser. So I was fundraising from 2008 on,
In New
and
York.
in New York, yeah. And one of our big donors, Hunter Hunt. He's from Dallas. He's born into a wealthy Texas oil family, and he met us in the streets of New York while we were fundraising. Gave $10 on the streets, and as we built the relationship over 20 years, he was like, "I want this to come to Dallas." So he invited my CEO to come to Dallas to do exploratory um, look to see if our development work will work here. And it came back yes. And I was like, you know what? Did the DJ thing here. I like being a fundraiser. I also was managing some clubs. That's a whole other story. Say in New York, in Brooklyn, in Park Slope. And I was like, I'm ready for a new change in my life. So send me to Dallas. So a yes and a yes. In 2013, September 20th, I moved.
Here you are. Yeah,
Yeah.
you really wanted that direct impact, as glamorous and fun as I'm sure it was to be on stage or to be producing these big shows. There's something about that one-on-one impact that you really missed, and that's why you're here.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Are any other success stories that you can think of off the top of your head from students that have been through the All Stars project?
Yeah. I mean, there's many, and a lot of times when people ask me that, I throw back the question of, well, what do we mean by success? Because again, society sometimes put those labels of success, right? So most times people want me to hear, they want to hear the story, which I have, of my first year in Dallas. I meet a young man at a school in a poor neighborhood, and I'm doing my community out organizing. Want to be in a talent show? He goes, I can't perform. I was like, well, we have more performances for you to do. You could be an act liaison, stagehand, MC, usher, box office person. He's like, I want to work the sound. I said, cool. So we had a small sound system. He came in the day of the talent show, my first talent show in Dallas. And I said, here, has you run the sound. Turn this up, turn this down, turn this up, turn this down, whatever. He then joined my first development school for youth class. The company he worked for, he lived in a very poor neighborhood, very poor home. The company he worked for as an intern over the summer loved him so much, they inspired him to go to college. And they said, if you graduate from 2 years of college, we'll hire you. He did. So now he works in an oil company that he interned with 5 years ago.
Mm.
I met his mom. His mom was like, he inspired me so much. I never got my high school diploma. I'm going back to school to get my GED.
Wow.
So that's a success story.
Yeah.
And I have a story where a young man was shot twice. Well, not shot. He got probably shot once, but he got hit twice. One through his shattered his knee, and one went through his leg, and he had to go to rehab and so forth. And he called me. I was one of his first calls to the hospital, and he's like, "I want more of my life. What's the next steps?" So we're working on his plan right now, right? And to me, that's a success story. One, that he's alive, and two, that he's like, I still want more of my life, So everything far between from there has happened.
Mm-hmm.
College, graduation, jobs, internships, young people organizing their lives.
Yep.
So, yeah.
A success story is any story where someone takes responsibility for their own life and can see the possibilities outside of what's in front of them. That's any success story. That's amazing.
That's good. I'm going to steal that.
Do it. I just made that up. Ooh. Okay, a few rapid fire questions to close things off.
Okay.
Some of these have been actually tripping up my guests a little bit. So if it trips you up, I can edit it out. No big deal. All right. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
So when I was younger, like talking about elementary school,
yeah,
I wanted to be a fireman.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I like the shiny red trucks. I like the loud noise, and I thought I'll be running into buildings. Well, back then I didn't know what it really meant to be a fireman. But to this day, I still like firemen, and I'm a fan of Chicago Fire. And any movie that has a fireman in it, I'm probably watching it. So
I feel like every little boy wants to be a hero in some way, and firefighters are sort of your first real life exposure to that. So that could be it. Yeah.
The hero complex.
Exactly. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Ooh, I like this one. Superpower. I think I want to run fast.
Ooh, yeah. Be able to get from one place to another in a matter of seconds.
Yeah. Part of my hero complex is if I could run faster, I can help more people.
Do you have any play idols? So people who you really look up to in the way they are creative or playful in the world and perhaps the work that they're doing?
All my mentors at the All-Stars. So that's a cheat. So look them up, people. Look them up. So if you ever get an email from me, I have a moniker. So my tagline of my name, I went through many iterations. So no longer an intelligent hoodlum, but my dance team called me the ringleader. Um, and for short, I go by RL. Um, so I always wanted to be a ringmaster as well. So I look at because I love the emceeing and the you know taking the stage and so forth. But as I got older, I took on this other moniker. So like I tell the young people, sometimes I need a performance. And Sean Combs, also known as Diddy, was
Yep.
one of my guys. I interviewed him a couple of times, met him a couple of times, even when I was on tour. He doesn't know who I am. That's cool. But I'm a developmentalist, so I call myself the Diddy of development.
Ooh.
So it's in my email. And so I tell the young people when I'm like networking and stuff like that, they like, you're so confident. I'm like, really? I'm just being Diddy. Because when I watch him in his career, he's bold, he's brash, he's not afraid, he gets out there, he speaks his mind. I'm like, that's who I am. I take risk. I don't abide by rules sometimes, but it's all for development. So I'm the Diddy of development. So he's a play idol of mine.
I like it. Channeling your Diddy. All right. If you could say anything to your 10-year-old self, what would it be?
10 years old. I don't remember 10 years old that much. I probably would say you're gonna have a great life and it'll be okay. You
Awesome.
know,
Love it. How would someone get involved with the All Stars project if they wanted to learn more, wanted to be involved in the work that you're doing?
very simple, and it's across the country. So, allstars.org, ALLSTARS.org. So just go there and you can find all cities. Find me, easy to find.
Amazing. Yeah, I mentioned earlier I do a little bit of volunteer work with the San Francisco chapter, and there's so many ways to get involved. And I'll be volunteering
Yeah.
with some of the youth for to help them prepare for the luncheon that they're having later in the year. And you can be on an email list where they'll send out volunteer opportunities for your chapter. So it's really easy to get involved. And do you have any social media or any ways for people to get in touch with you if they want to say
Yeah, yeah,
hello?
yeah. You can find me. I mean, my Facebook is my name. You can find me on Instagram as Didier Development,
Oh,
and
great.
Twitter and Instagram Didier Development.
Perfect. That's easy to remember. Amazing. Antoine, thank you so much for sharing your story and for telling us about All Stars and being such an inspiration for how you have lived your life and just all the amazing wisdom you have to share about play. It really was
Thank you.
inspiring. So thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Thank you.
That was Antoine Joyce, the Dallas city leader of the All Stars Project. I'm so glad that Antoine could come on the podcast to talk about how the All Stars Project impacted him. So much so that he's now leading the Dallas City chapter and he's able to impart all that he's learned with play and performance to work with the underserved youth in that area. Let's get into some of those nuggets of wisdom that we learned from the conversation. Number one, sometimes the way we are is a result of how others see us or the environment that we are in. So Antoine talked about how when he was growing up, he was very outgoing. He was one of the smarter kids in his school. And then he got placed into a high school where it was predominantly white and he felt very out of place and he didn't feel seen there. So as a result, he started not doing well in school. He became shy and insecure and introverted, and so much so that the teachers mentioned that they thought he might be doing drugs, which is very unfortunate. And that was not truly Antoine's personality, but because he was put in an environment where he didn't feel like himself, he wasn't able to express and be himself. So when you look at certain parts of your personality or certain habits you may have or certain ways of being that you prescribe to, think about, is that who you truly are? Or maybe it's a result of having been placed in a certain environment where you decided, I need to act this way in order to be safe, or in order to fit in, or in order to not stand out too much. Speaking from personal experience, I grew up in a small town in Colorado, and for those of you who have never seen me before, I am Chinese American, and while I was born in the States, I felt like I didn't truly fit in, and I was very nervous about standing out too much, and so I didn't. I would do whatever I could to blend in and to be like everyone else so that I didn't seem too different. And that's not really my true personality. And now that I've been able to grow into my own as an adult, I've learned that that's not who I am at all. So instead of prescribing so strongly to certain aspects of her personality and being so attached to them, maybe step back and ask yourself, is this who I truly am? Or is it a result of my experiences, my environment, or the ways people have told me that I should be? And take a look at yourself. You may find that you are actually more than you think you are. Number 2. The good news is that we have the ability to perform to all different kinds of labels and identities. That's the wonderful thing about the AllStars Project. It teaches these youth that we are all natural born performers, and they have the ability to perform to another label if they so choose. And Antoine, for example, was able to perform out of that shy, introverted identity that he had adopted in school. One day, he stumbled upon some kids that were learning a dance for an AllStars Project talent show, and just for the fun of it, he said, "Oh, I can do that too. Let me try." And he danced with the kids, and he found that it felt very natural for him to perform and to dance, and before you knew it, he was performing on stage for an All-Stars talent show, and then he started producing the talent shows, and then he started producing shows for DJ Grandmaster Flash and traveling all over the world, and adopted a completely different identity than he had before when he was that shy, introverted kid in school. So sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit that we have the ability to change and to grow out of the identities we have. And it helps sometimes to think of it as a performance. If a certain identity doesn't feel right anymore, think of how you can adopt a different identity by performing it. Try performing being an outgoing person. Try performing being a funny person, or a happy person, or something that's different for you. I think we can easily get stuck in these boxes that we place ourselves in, and we don't give ourselves enough credit that we have the ability to grow and learn and change. So if there's a certain part of your identity, of your experience that doesn't feel right anymore, try performing another one and try it on for size. You might find that it suits you a lot better. Number 3, it's important to learn how to take risks and fail in a low-stakes environment so that you can do it in a higher-stakes environment. Because guess what? We're all going to fail once in a while, and it's important to learn how to bounce back from that. And it's better if we can learn how to do it first in a lower-stakes environment. The AllStars Project has a great talent show program where youth can learn to perform, be on stage, and take risks in an environment that will not criticize or judge them. Everyone has the chance to perform and be on stage, or to produce the shows, working the sound and the technical equipment, and it's an environment that is very welcoming and allows for mistakes and allows for experimentation. And by learning that it's okay to take risks and okay to fail once in a while, these youth are then able to take that resilience and those tools into other parts of their life, whether that be work or relationships or other situations where there are real consequences and rewards. So if you want to apply this for yourself, make sure you have a regular practice where you are taking risks in an environment where there are low stakes, whether that be a class of some sort, whether that be a personal practice of yours that you can really use on an ongoing basis so that you can learn to take risks and learn to be in an environment where it's okay to fail. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of 2020. If you want to learn more about the AllStars Project, go to allstars.org. You can look up to see if it is in your city, and you may want to volunteer like I do here in San Francisco. It is such a fun and rewarding experience, so I hope you'll check it out. If you want to connect with Antoine, you can find him on Instagram at Diddy of Development. Are you looking for more play in your life? Make sure you're subscribed to the Recess Life podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or any of the podcast platforms. You can also find the video interviews on YouTube. Don't forget to leave a review. Your feedback is so important to me, and it helps others to find the podcast. You can also follow the conversation on Instagram at The Recess Life. And lastly, you can go to therecesslife.com where you'll find all the episodes and show notes on each of our guests. I hope this podcast helps you to become a little more playful today than you were yesterday. Until next time, don't forget to get out and play today.